listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith Johnson.
From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AFTERBUZZ TV's Attack on Titan After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's Attack on Titan After Show.
Oh, man.
I'm still disappointed.
Yeah, I was like...
I'm still disappointed.
Am I the only one that likes this song? I don't
Yes.
love this song.
I don't like this song up until... Hold on, it's coming, it's coming. And there it is. There it is. Everybody listen. No, shut up, Dave. Dragon Force is playing.
Even with Dragon Force. Even with Dragon Force, it's just not as good.
Horizon. It's still Linked Horizon. It's still the same group that did the first one. And actually, if you hear the full song, there actually is a bit where they go into the melody of the first opening.
Well, that's the part they should have used.
It's not a bad song. It really isn't. But it's not the first opening. It's not Angry German off the bat.
Well, it's just also, I don't know, the other song was just so epic to me. It really got me into this. It's not the same.
Have this conversation every time it's this opening.
This opening is more like we're fighting for our freedom, whereas the previous opening is we're gonna die fighting, but by God, we will go out in a blaze of glory. This one's more about we're fighting for our freedom.
This one sounds more like
Angry German.
Well, let's just say this one sounds more like typical like J-pop anime to me. Like I could hear this in any anime, it won't mean anything. Whereas the opening for original Attack on Titan opening was really, it stood out. It felt really unique.
Angry German.
Angry German. It was unique.
Hashtag Angry German.
But how do you guys feel? Whose side are you on? That's what really matters.
We're going to have a war in the comments.
You know what? I'm against you, but I love this Twitter hashtag Angry German. Let's make everything now with that.
I mean, it always like to me, a lot of animes go up and down. Like Naruto, there's some really good ones. Like the first one I loved, and then it got bad, and then there were good ones. So I'm hoping the next few I personally like more. But Megan likes this one.
Naruto?
Naruto. What do you want me to say? Naruto Shippuden, the next one. Naruto.
Well, but he was also calling Armin Arumin.
Do you want me to do the Japanese way of saying it, or do you want me to do the American way?
Believe it. Say it right.
Believe it.
No more of that.
Steven.
Believe it. Believe it.
Steven, I will come into that booth and silence you myself.
So Naruto is the one like anime that I just cannot watch the American dub for because of that. I just can't. I can't do it.
They stopped doing that. They stopped doing that after a little while. They knew it was ridiculous, so they stopped doing that.
Well, they
didn't stop soon enough.
Well, Naruto just speaks in that old style, the Gazaru style. He always with datebayo or Gazaru or Gozaimasu and that's
just
the
gibberish.
Our systems detect that a host has wandered off the subject.
No, this is actually the Naruto after show. I don't know if you guys knew that.
I haven't heard that.
Joining us today, John Quick.
Whatever.
On the side of new intro. On the side of old intro, Katie Cullen.
Hashtag Angry German.
On the side of new intro, Megan Salinas.
Hi, everybody. I like the new one, and I will stand by that.
And
I will not.
On the side of old intro, I'm Dave Klein. That's how we're doing it. It's actually, we sectioned it off, we split the table in half for like which side you're on.
I'm with you, John.
So we can fight each other.
You notice the bigger...
No, fisticuffs. Like this.
Believe it!
It's old school boxing.
Anyway, should we get talking about the episode?
No, because
now?
you notice that the bigger section of the table is on the side of Katie and I.
And that obviously means we're right.
Yes. Sure. All right. So, jumping into the episode, we start off right after Aaron getting... So right after Aaron getting having the crap beaten out of him, we immediately go with them going into the old Scout Regiment headquarters, which no one's been to for a long time. It's like it's a holding cell that's what they used to use it for. And we're starting to meet the actual scouts. So outside of just the commanders, outside of Levi, we're actually meeting Oruo is our first one that we're meeting here, who
is acting like a jerk.
Yeah.
Is acting like a jerk, just trying to intimidate Aaron, and ends up biting his own lip while doing that.
I tell you to bite your tongue, but you've already got that covered.
We're learning that he is the worst at biting his lips, though, because he really dug in. So much blood
everywhere.
Like, man, usually, like, it just, like, I bite mine and it turns into a canker sore, so I'm like, damn, but that blood doesn't fly everywhere, so he beat me.
It's less dramatic when you do it,
Well,
right?
we have to have a certain amount of blood in each Attack on Titan episode, and obviously there's no Titan fighting in this one, so lip biting will have to suffice.
There was
for
Titan
some reason.
stabbing and screaming, though.
Oh, yeah, there was that.
That's true.
Yeah. But so after
This was a
Oruo,
messed up episode.
we get Petra basically laying into him for being a jerk for no reason. She's like, "This isn't who you are. Why are you doing this?"
It's like if you're trying to act like Levi, you're failing miserably.
Yeah.
Petra is number
Which I
one at not
understand.
putting up with his noise.
I think Petra's my favorite character in the Scout Regiment.
Yeah, out of Team Levi, she's my favorite.
I love Petra.
But you gotta
Hanji.
give Aruo, like, as soon as we get this intro, like, Aaron starts, like, listing down, like, all of their stats, like their Pokemon.
No, I was like,
So many
39
kills, so many assists.
when he started
Water
doing
type.
it made it sound like Call of Duty to me, because like that's the exact same thing you do in Call of Duty. It's like, oh, this is how many kills you got at the end of end of a match. This is your assist. That's exactly what you look at, and you're like, if you start doing kill death ratio, then it'd be
and
totally
notice
Call of
that
Duty. I guess.
Oro was the only one who had more kills than he had assists. He had like 40 some odd kills and 8 assists, and everyone else had like a dozen, 2 dozen kills and a bazillion assists. So were they all just helping this guy, or
They
No, I think
passed
they're
it
all
to him
helping
and he
Levi.
made the layup.
Yeah, it's probably all Levi.
Something like that.
Probably all Levi.
Yeah,
On
how
those
many
assists.
did we
True.
get? Did we get Levi's stats?
No.
on
Not
this?
in this episode, no. 'Cause
no? Because Levi's a little broken.
Too many.
It's true.
Kills, too many.
Kills
Assists,
too
not
infinite.
It's like enough to make you actually feel bad for Titans.
No, only on Hanji.
Or yeah. So right after this giant list, we have Levi. We learned this new side of Levi that we got to see briefly in previous episode, but we're starting to actually see it here.
We get to see the neat freak
The
side.
neat freak side, yeah.
Everyone clean it. Okay.
So he is very much a stickler for this, as he wants to check on Aaron's work for this. He has Aaron take over for his own work, and Aaron's work doesn't hold up to his standards. But we're finding out that Aaron's going to have to sleep in shackles every single night.
In the basement.
In the basement. So, because transferring to Titan, that would obviously hold Titan in, but still, just that safety measure that they have to do for the political end of things.
Yeah.
It's really all politics. Even though Levi doesn't lay it out to Aaron that way, we kind of know as an audience that it's really all about politics, and that's really why they're doing it.
Well, Levi doesn't really give a damn.
No.
He's just like, you're going to do this, or we're going to have issues. And
Yeah.
you don't want to have issues.
You don't want to
with
have
it.
issues with me.
Captain, where will I be sleeping? The cellar. Again?
Oh, but what if I do a really
Pretty
good
much
job
how that
cleaning?
there were a few more sirs in there, but that's pretty much how that exchange went down.
Well,
Yeah.
I think it was an extra measure. It's like he says that it's for their protection because Aaron's an unknown. I honestly think it's for Aaron's protection because the military police still wants him dead.
That's true.
That's true,
The
too.
scouts went so far out. It's like, hey, remember that thing that we technically own that we haven't been to in years? That castle somewhere where nobody else knows where it is? Yeah, let's stick him there. Stick him there. Stick him in the basement. So at night, a lucky sniper can't get a shot off.
You know, and considering
Yeah.
what happens at the end of this episode, that's probably a lot more. That actually sounds
Yeah.
like the most likely reason why they would have to do that, given what we know what happens at the end.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, that definitely makes sense. And we have a conversation with Petra, but what kind of connects to that before we get into that conversation is immediately afterwards there's the scene with Commander Irwin, who's planning things out, and he kind of basically mentions that like we have to handle this political situation and we have to make sure that we get to keep this asset that we have and it doesn't get taken away from us. So it really does play into that. But I think this scene in particular beforehand was kind of what made me like Petra a lot too, other than her, that she's not taking any crap from Rodrigo, which is awesome. But the other thing is that she shows this kind side to Aaron, which we haven't seen too much of. So.
We have a lot of badass ladies on this show, obviously.
Thank God.
But a lot of them, are kind of like Annie and Mikasa in that they're very stoic. They're very layered and they're well-rounded, but a lot of them are very stoic because of all the things that they've seen. So it's interesting to see somebody in the Scout Regiment who everybody in the Scout Regiment's a little crazy, but it's
Some more than others.
It's very interesting to see somebody who's out there on the front lines all the time who still has such a kind heart and a positive disposition.
Yeah, and she gives us some info on Levi, some background info on him, which is that he basically, he doesn't seem like that great hero everyone thinks that he is, but
He's too short.
Yeah, he's a little too short for that. But outside of that is the fact that he used to be a little more rogue before he was so compliant, which there's a new manga out that actually goes a little bit into that.
No regrets, yes. I
Yeah.
believe that's part, at least the subtitle of it.
And we had Matthew Mercer on last week, and he was talking a little bit about how, that end of the courtroom scene, you really do get a sense of Levi's thug years, as he put it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
He literally kicks the hell out of him. Like, oh, you've done this before, haven't you?
well, if you read that manga, the I guess you can call it the prequel manga, like the very first thing that you're introduced is that Levi was born and raised in this subterranean city that's right underneath the capital. It was apparently an initial effort to we don't have a lot of space out, let's try going down, and then it was abandoned so then the poor people just moved in there, and then that's basically, it's a totally unpoliced, unregulated area, and that's where he just happened to thrive.
It's underground slums.
Yeah.
But it's funny though, because that's kind of what we were talking about. Like, well, why don't they build underground? Because Titans can't get there, and that they have that. So they actually have a subterranean city.
Well, I think there's probably a few issues with that. I think there's a political and a religious issue that comes into, but then there's also the key issue of, you noticed when they were in the base in Trost, and there were a bunch of them gathered together in those one rooms, and then we had Nicolas Cage Titans, stick their faces in. Titans seem to have an instinctive ability to know where people are, either through it's like a sixth sense or smell. So if you're underground and there are giants above you who all they have to do is lift up their foot and go stomp a few times,
then the Titans drop in on top of you, and then there's nowhere for you to run.
We got to dig deeper. We got to dig deeper. They'll never know.
And then suddenly we're mole people.
Yes.
or Zion.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
See?
Matrix parallels.
Yeah, but if we blocked out the sun, the Titan problem would be solved anyway.
Apparently, we just had a picture taken on someone's phone.
What?
Anyway.
So
Where did that come from?
I do not know. So regardless,
Anybody ever get the feeling that we're being watched?
I thought we were just having a private conversation.
Steve.
So, all right. Anyways, Aaron explained to the Scout Regiment. So they're all eating dinner together.
For those of you listening
Nice.
to the podcast,
That's
for
great.
those of you listening to the podcast who are unable to see, Katie, calm down. Our wonderful engineer, Steven, has constructed a diagram explaining who is on what side in favor of the new intro versus the old intro. And Steven's conclusion, as indicated by the diagram, is believe it.
That just makes me so sad. Just the conclusion. But I love the diagram. The diagram is just fantastic.
Pretty
So
fantastic.
was the picture sound effect our indication that was coming?
Yeah, I believe
Maybe.
so.
Believe it.
Believe it. Oh, no.
Stop.
Oh,
Okay,
no.
Back to the episode.
Okay, so
Are we talking about things?
There's a lot of interesting stuff in this episode. It's very exposition heavy, but we do get a lot of information on, especially the Titans that were captured.
Right.
Not to jump ahead.
Well,
but-
yes, but so
Might as well.
but they're all eating dinner together first. I mean, that's the first thing that we get, and we get Aaron basically explaining what he knows, and he's realizing he knows next to nothing about his ability, except for somehow he knows he needs to cause himself pain.
Yeah.
And he's realizing, why do I even know that? That's so strange that that's the one thing I know. And we finally get, as you're talking about crazy people in the regiment, Section Commander Hanji coming in.
Hanji freaking Zoe.
So
the mad scientist of the group.
as
I'm
Hanji
so happy.
comes in and starts talking to Aaron, everybody disperses for
Just
some
like,
reason.
oh, look at my wrist. It's time to go.
Because Hanji's like, are you going to help me with my experiments? Are you going to do this? I want you to help me out tomorrow. And Aaron keeps going, okay, what will I be doing? Like, what exactly do you need me to do? And everyone else at the table, it's all, oh boy, here it comes. We're leaving before Hanji starts talking more.
It makes me wonder how many of them had to sit up with her all night.
I
Yeah.
know with all of them.
Yeah, probably
At
all of
least
them.
Once.
It's like a group
Possibly
hazing
twice.
thing.
Everyone's got to sit through the Hanji speech.
Hanji hazing.
She's like, oh, let me tell you.
Hashtag
Let me
Hanji
tell you all
hazing.
about
Like,
it.
you're not really a member of Levi's team until you've sat up all night with Hanji talking about Titan.
Against your will.
But I think this is a great episode in terms of everything Hanji tells us.
Know
Oh,
what he or she wants.
Oh, hello?
hello.
I think that was. I think that's a voicemail. Calling.
I was like, is that Chris Sabat? Oh, so something we should
I'm a
mention
little
is that
worried.
we're going to have Chris Sabat on the phone, who is the voice of Commander Freakout, as you all know him, as we all know him, or Commander Worrymon. Or maybe he's a commander. Is he commander?
Digimon.
He's a captain.
He does.
He's a captain.
He's a captain. Okay.
Captain Freakout.
Captain. Let me write that note down. Not a commander. Not that high.
You really shouldn't write down everything I say. I'm rarely ever right. Charismatic, yes. Right?
Well,
Anyway.
I can agree to that.
A lot of times, I don't know. I
thing.
trust your opinion. All right, or
God
what you
help
say.
you.
So anyway,
All
back
right,
to Hanji.
so back to Hanji though. So Hanji starts going on about this previous incident in which there were two. Well, first they start talking about these captured Titans, these new ones, and you start learning about that there were previous Titans that were captured, and Hanji had named the previous ones Chikatilo and Albert. At least I think that's right.
Yes, it's Chikatilo and Albert.
And we've seen Hanji is the one who's doing all these experiments on Titans, and this is pretty much how we have a lot of the knowledge of Titans in this world. But we're going to go on more about this, but we do have on the phone with us.
Continue on.
On the phone with us, we have Chris Sabat. Thank you so much for joining us. You may know Chris Sabat from his amazing roles on Dragon Ball Z, like reporter, newscaster, boat jerk, staff officer black. Those were some of the major roles that you had in Dragon Ball Z.
I think it was a minor villain called Vegeta that was like around for an episode or something.
Okay. Well, I guess there's also Vegeta.
Bit part.
Yeah.
Or Piccolo and
Was
Yamcha.
there for an episode or two, maybe?
Maybe a couple episodes. But thank you so much for joining us and coming on the phone with us.
Oh yeah, I'm afraid are you calling for Chris Sabat? I'm not sure who this.
Oh,
who is this? Is this Nix 106.1? I love Barry Manilow, dude. Watch you guys all the time. Oh man,
that's
so
right.
Great.
You just won seats
so well.
for Manilow's next show at the Hollywood Bowl.
So how's it going, fellas?
It's going great. So yeah, we were talking about we've constantly talked about your role, although brief, your role in Attack on Titan because you had such a memorable role as Captain Worrymon, or as we lovingly call him, Captain Freakout.
Yes,
that's what we've dubbed him. And yeah, so what was it like? Have you ever seen Attack on Titan before you got this role? Or do you tend to get roles and then because you're such an established voice actor, you just be like, all right, I got my role and just go in and do your part, or do you actually watch some of these animes beforehand?
Yeah, I have to be honest. Unless you are like the king of all anime people, it's impossible to watch everything.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like I imagine if you're not as busy, maybe you have some more time, but it's almost impossible.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
When I'm directing a show, I always get a chance to watch it beforehand. I mean, it's just part of your job. But when you're acting on it, there's very little, unless I get, if I get a lead in it or a really important role in it, I'll usually try to watch at least some of it to get an idea of what I'm walking into. But in this case, Mike called me and said, hey, you're coming in for Attack on Titan. I'm like, what's it for? He goes, well, you're going to love it. And I came in to work on the show, and it was not the normal type of role that I play. I normally play dudes with, muscles or swords, or dudes who can blow up people with fire in their hands. Whereas this guy was kind of a loser.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think that's a pretty accurate
assessment. And what's funny is that it's safe to say that this Attack on Titan gave me a flu.
Oh no!
Was it from screaming so much?
Now I don't know if it was before, it was coming on before I went into work with Mike, or it just so happened that the next day I came down with a horrible flu. I wasn't feeling that good at the end of the session. It was a screamer too, man. It was insane.
Yeah.
Titan flu.
That show, yeah. I've seen a couple of episodes since. I occasionally go over to Ian Sinclair's house. Do you guys know Ian? He plays Dandy in Space Dandy.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, he loves to watch himself. So we occasionally go over to his house with one of the other writers from Space Dandy, and Attack on Titan is on immediately following, or immediately prior to it. Gosh, that shows how much I watched that network. I can't remember what order they are. But yeah, I've seen a couple episodes, and it's super intense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good descriptor.
And the sun is slightly warm.
And So when Mike called me in to work on that, he was like, "Yeah, you're gonna like this part." I go, oh, "Okay, so what's this all about?" And we get through the first episode. I'm like, "So does this guy ever stop screaming?" He said, "Well, no one in this show ever stops."
Yeah. I think it's a fairly accurate assessment.
Attack on Titan. No one ever stopped screaming.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. And so I'm sure he knew I was worthy of the challenge, since that's all Dragon Ball Z was anyway. So I went into that not knowing what to expect, and it was really, really intense. I'm very happy with the way it ended up turning out, but it was very, very difficult to get. It was just top of lungs screaming. I wanted to give him something that was a little different than that. It's really hard when you're looking at the face of a character and all they have is their mouth just wide open eyes and like lasers shooting up behind their heads all the time. You want to try and give those characters like a tiny bit of depth or something to them. So I was trying to put as much fear in him as possible, while also trying to respect what he looked like as well, which was a raving, screaming lunatic.
No, that's great. I'm glad there was that background of fear in him, because that's very much the character that he's presented as. And I'm wondering, like, after a session like that, though, do you just completely lose your voice, or do you have ways now of doing this professionally for so long that you've kind of learned how to adapt and make it so you don't just completely, your voice doesn't go kaput afterwards?
There's some tricks to doing it. I mean, there's tricks as to how to scream. Like I know a lot of actors who I just haven't quite mastered that yet. But there are ways of learning how to scream so you don't kill yourself within the first hour.
Yeah.
But once you're working for, that was about a 4-hour session. Like by hour 3, it's pretty gone. I mean, it goes pretty fast. I've never lost my voice completely, but I lose it enough to where I have very, it's not real attractive. Well, actually, be attractive for radio, but it's just not really. My daughter's scared.
I guess it's that really grungy cigarette smoker voice.
Yeah.
But I guess you just have to binge out on tea and honey, nonstop.
You do. There's also a lot of superstitions, but when it all comes down to it, just like trying to pace yourself, and then vocal rest as much as you can.
Yeah.
But we're still, it never stops for us. And a lot of the programs we work on, a lot of the shows, especially One Piece, it's just like that.
Oh yeah, I can imagine with One Piece as well. So you also do directing though as well. So have you found that now, as you're doing more and more directing, that you're really passionate about directing over voice acting, or do you just love that you get to do both aspects?
I like to do as much as humanly possible. I'd like to do as much of everything as I possibly can. I don't think I would be happy doing just one thing. And sometimes I'll do a long string of a lot of acting stuff. I'm like, oh my God, that sucks.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm getting paid, so I should be happy about this. But I'm like, man, it's just hard. And you have to drop a lot of everything that's going on in your life when you're acting too. Because you can't walk in with just a bunch of baggage and feeling all sappy or sorry or weird. You just have to kind of shut all that off.
Yeah.
So after you do that for a while, you tend to shut everything off, and it gets to be kind of a burden. But directing's an interesting challenge. And another thing I love about directing is that, unfortunately, this is the case with most anime, is that you don't get to work with the actors. You don't get to work with a lot of your fellow actors when you're just acting in anime.
Right.
Because it's a one-on-one type of thing, and it's the actor and the director. So as a director, you do get the opportunity to see everybody, and that's a nice thing because the actors are awesome. They're really great people. And getting to direct them is awesome, too, because most of the job in directing is casting it. And Mike McFarlane, I'll give him credit, the director, he is really good at finding a great cast. And he knows, like all good directors, that once you have the right people and they have the right voices, all you pretty much have to do is say, here's what's happening in the scene. And you just have to steer them to make sure that they don't misunderstand something. But usually once you have the right people down, it's so easy. Like it's such an easy job.
Yeah, I imagine casting to me is always like that seems really difficult. I could never do something like that. Finding the exact right thing, listening to that many samples, I'm sure they have to listen to.
You have to listen to countless samples, and what's even worse is you sometimes have to deal with countless bad auditions.
Oh no!
Oh, dude, bad auditions are like listen to your nana talk or whatever, like your nana talk when you just don't want to listen to what she's saying.
Yeah.
You have to let her get through it and kind of nod and go, yeah, that's really interesting. Because there's just some awful auditions, and it's all part of the process. But it's and you'll be fooled too, because sometimes you'll have a day that's you have so many bad auditions, and you get somebody, and you're like, oh, whoa, this person's just right. And then when you listen back to them all at the end of the day, you realize that, like, in context.
Well, the bar was set
really,
that
yeah.
low, so.
So I was gonna say, if you audition, that'd be the day to go, and apparently not. But at least you seem that much better in the day.
Well, that being
Yeah,
said,
but-
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. What were you saying?
Oh, I was going to say, with that being said, what kind of advice do you have for aspiring actors out there who want to improve upon their talents? To avoid being one of the not great auditions.
Who want to give a good audition?
Well, I'm only speaking to people who don't have my voice type, right?
Yeah, of course.
You know, self-preservation above all things. No, man, there's a long list of things to do, but I would say that because we get a lot of people, especially in anime, there's so many huge fans of anime.
Yeah.
And a lot of people believe that they want to be voice actors too. And it's not a terrible thing to aspire to be, but it's just a very rare thing to actually get to do it. And a lot of people, I think, want to be anime voice actors because it puts them one step closer to the thing that they love so much, because you love anime so much, you want to be as close to it as you possibly can. Voice acting is about as close as you can get, besides moving to Japan and changing your name and all that stuff. But so that, I think one of the hard things to get used to is learning how to kind of temper your love for anime in auditions, because sometimes that can make you very nervous. And unfortunately, a nervous audition is typically a pretty bad one. And when you're seeing a lot of people in an average day, it's sometimes hard to get people to relax in there a little bit. I've gotten pretty good at helping people, relax some. I can tell when someone's just petrified.
Yeah.
But it's I'd say definitely relax. I'd say work on it as much as you can at home first. Auditioning is tricky because they put you in a room, they put headphones on you, they sit you in front of a microphone, they put you in an enclosed, padded room, and then you've just got this complete silence, and all you hear is your voice amplified. So if you haven't experienced that before, when you get into the booth to audition, you're bound for failure, because you just hear every time you have a plosive P. You guys are used to that on a microphone or whatever. Every single sound you make, you start to you cave in a little bit. So I'd say get as much practice as you can before you get into the booth. Practice talking, practice recording yourself. It's not that hard.
Do they also have the window of people just staring at them too while they're auditioning?
Yeah, definitely hire a group of complete strangers.
Yeah, just to stare. I mean, for me,
they're really cheap.
Well, for me, like any audition I've done, the most petrifying part is just being in front of someone who you don't know and doing it. So I'd almost be like in a room by myself. I'm like, at least I can just be me and not have to worry about someone who's just like staring at me like, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
I will say auditions are becoming more and more rare in the business. I mean, you've probably experienced, some of you guys have experienced it yourself. There's so many, MP3 auditions these days. And that's a plus and a minus. A plus is that you get to audition for a lot more. The minus is that you never get to really know exactly what they were looking for.
But the plus for
I'll
you,
audition for a commercial or something like that, and I'll have a great idea as to what they want based on the description. And then I don't book it, and then you hear it on TV, and you go, "Oh, that's what you're wanting."
Yeah. But the plus for you, or from the audition process, is that you can immediately be like, "Oh, I can just click off of this," instead of sitting through the entire really gruesome audition.
Yep. Oh, yeah. That's been. Unfortunately, there have been times when we're in a real rush where you'll just hear, David, James, Practical, Bex, You only hear like just their beginning slate before they even get to audition. Sometimes you're just in such a hurry. I'll like click, hear their name, click in the middle of the audition, go, not the right, it's too old. Sometimes when we're in a rush, we have to kind of pass some people over.
I'm sure. So you actually have a new Dragon Ball Z movie coming out. Talk about that.
Oh, dude. The Battle of Gods. It's out. And I think there might be a couple more encore presentations of it, but it's done so well. And after working on Dragon Ball for 14, 15 years now, it's so nice to actually have brand new material.
Yeah, I mean, both Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z and GT. You've done all of them.
I mean, we did all those, 12 years ago. And in the video games, we've just been repeating the same stuff over and over and over again. And when we redub it or we remaster it, we add a few lines here and there. It's always the same. There's never been a new story. And finally, there's a new story. And it was so awesome to work on it and then go to the theater and see it with a bunch of other people who grew up running home from school every day to watch Dragon Ball Z. So there's so much fan service in it, and it's a pretty well-balanced film.
Yeah, I mean, like, that was my childhood, too. I was literally, like, every day, I was like, I need that. Well, for me, actually, this was even before it was on. I started watching Dragon Ball Z before it was on TV, so I had to go Sam Goody.
You hipster.
Yeah, I know. I was before all that.
Before it was cool.
But, I mean, my point was that, like, I had to go to Sam Goody and buy, like, a DVD that had 3 episodes. I was just like, yes, 3 episodes.
And it was like, what, $35?
Yeah, $30. Yeah, it was $30. Like, now I look back, I'm like, I can't believe I spent that much money on 3 episodes. But yeah, so I was one of those kids who's like super excited. So. But thank you so much for coming on. To me, I was like, oh my god, I can't believe we got Chris Sabat. I was the biggest DBZ fan. I literally had posters in my room as a kid and everything you could possibly. I had trading cards of Dragon Ball Z.
You could probably still find his old Angel Fire site.
Actually, I did. I had he's not lying. I had an Angel Fire Dragon Ball Z fan site.
Hey, AfterBuzz viewers, challenge issue.
See, you can find it.
I probably read your page. It was probably like, the new Dragon Ball series doesn't have the same quality as the dub.
No, I was just like, man, I don't like the dubbing in America. It's all about the Japanese. I was just a fan. So like, I was like one of the kids just like, I had every animated GIF on my website. I had every like image. I was like, you go to my website, you can find every animated GIF ever. Yeah.
Yeah. After 30 minutes of loading, you will see the most GIFs ever.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you'd like wait an hour to download a 5-second GIF from Japan from Dragon Ball GT before it came to America. It's like, yeah. That's cool.
It's funny how some stuff just stays up there too. Like I found a petition to remove me from the anime business that some girl had started 15 years ago. You can probably still find it online. I am the first person to sign it.
Wow.
And there's only 3 signatures on it.
That's fantastic. If you're like, oh man, someone doesn't like me again. Oh, this was 15 years ago. Okay, I don't care.
I feel like that's a piece of history.
Yeah, that's fantastic. But again, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate having you.
Absolutely. I'd love to be on your show again. Take care.
We would absolutely love to. Thank you so much. Bye.
Well, that was cool. Okay, can everybody... Okay, 3, 2, 1, now we can fan out.
Yeah. Absolute legend.
There's a 15-year-old...
Mr. Fan site.
All right, so aside from finding Dave's old Angel Fire site, we have to find this petition.
Somebody please find the petition.
If you find this petition, I will literally pay you $5. You put the link on the website, then you can email. I will give you my email. Email me your address. I will send you $5.
Believe it!
And that's the wrap-up. That's the wrap-around.
I think in the YouTube comments, we all want to see
And we've come full circle.
Yeah, that is absolutely full circle. I wish we were ending, but we're not. We actually have a little bit more we have to talk about. Like really important stuff. I know you guys have a guest on Sword Art Online, so
we got 5 minutes.
Let's do it really quick. So we do need to talk about Titan science. So we find out some really important things. So one thing is apparently they get their energy from the sun. So they don't need food, they don't need all this stuff, but they actually are sunlight.
They're like giant evil Venus flytraps.
They also don't need to breathe. Is the other thing
they don't need to breathe. So
but
it really is
vocal cords.
Literally, sunlight is the one thing that we know from Hanji. That is the one thing. So I think it's important to
has its own different thresholds. Some are kind of more lethargic. Some are more energetic. Some will try to eat you right away. Others you have to get up super close. So even though they're all Titans and they all want to kill people, there are differences between Titans, which is kind of interesting that they're not all just the same.
And all of their bodies are really light for some reason. You remove a Titan limb and it's like, oh, this weighs like 2 pounds. Why?
Yeah, so for some reason, this is my second time watching because I watched the subtitle before when it was only on Hulu, and now this is my second time watching it. For some reason, I don't know how I missed that. So for me, rewatching it this time, this was the first time I realized that. I was like,
They're like, oh,
That's weird.
what? I was also thinking, how is it then when they step, it makes a footprint? What?
Yeah,
Sometimes.
and they can punch their fist through walls
Right.
and everything like that. How is
They've
that
got so much
possible when their
energy.
limbs are light as a feather?
Yeah, as Hanji says, they still have so much energy, which is really crazy because their substance is not equal to their size at all, which is crazy. So I think that's a really big revelation that we learn
Then
in this
again,
episode.
those are detached limbs.
That's
I don't
true.
think
Right,
anyone's
that's
ever
true.
tried to lift a living Titan.
Yeah, no.
You're just like, oh, it just weighs the same amount as Aaron. Well,
I was gonna say, if that were the case, I think it'd be pretty easy to defeat a Titan. You just run up to its foot.
Goodbye.
so you have to wonder
It's
how
like
they
cable
ended up.
tossing in Scotland.
How did they end up getting it from one point to another, though? Unless they just used machinery and cranes to lift it up onto
I don't
a
think they
moving bed.
did. They built scaffolding around where they captured
oh,
those
yeah,
Titans.
that probably is the
They
case.
nailed them to the ground and built scaffolding.
Yeah,
I don't think they
you're
moved
probably
them.
right. I'd say you're probably right. So after all of this, after finding out a lot about these Titans, we also
After
find
seeing Hanji scream a lot,
we have to, so Hanji
Oh
also
my
tries
God, so
testing the
much
pain,
screaming.
a lot of scream. And we also find out Hanji's backstory for the reason that Hanji started doing this was because after kicking over a Titan head, the whole start of this was realizing how light Titans were. So that was what started all of this and finding out and studying Titans. But after all this, we find out that the test subjects are now dead, and someone has mysteriously come and killed these test
Yeah, it
subjects.
was someone with ODM gear. That was a huge thing, is that, they killed them and then ran away on 3D gear. So it's somebody within probably the military then, if they have access to 3D maneuvering gear.
Because civilians don't.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Erwin comes in to Aaron and says, "Who do you think the real enemy is here?" Ignore me.
That was
loaded
a loaded question. Ignore me.
But still, like that all of a sudden creates this whodunit thing around this of like, oh, what's going on? Like this really big mystery that all of a sudden is planted in here.
Yeah, and that's where we leave this episode. It's literally who done it to be continued.
So and I think it's fantastic because it adds already to me the story is interesting. Like, all right, they're gonna try and with Aaron go back to the base with the key, but all of a sudden there's this added on. It's just another layer of like all of a sudden you're like, oh no, there's some sort of traitor or something. What's going on?
Why would anybody? I mean, I understand if somebody were to kill these Titans because they're afraid that they'll get out of their confinement and start attacking people. So that would that would be understandable if that was the motive. But we don't know what the motive is.
Yeah,
and
we have no idea.
If it's not fear-based, then is it that they just don't want people like looking at Titans? Is that the case?
Preventing scientific progress.
Exactly.
But why?
Exactly.
All right, so we do actually need to wrap up as Sword Art Online, who right after us have a wonderful guest themselves. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Real quick, I'm Dave Klein. You can find me on Twitter at @TheDaveKlein. That's Klein.
I'm Megan. You can follow me on Twitter at @TheMenguin. That's TheMenguin. I am also on the Sword Art Online panels on Sunday nights.
And I'm John Quick. You can find me on Twitter at @NowQuick, and you can also find me on the Legend of Korra panel.
I'm Katie Cullen. You can find me on Twitter and Tumblr at Kiaxet. That's Kiaxet. I am also on the Sword Art Online, Legend of Korra, and Ruby panels.
Yeah,
and
that
remember
too.
to drop by iTunes and rate us 5 stars because you love us. And we love you too.
Yes,
And it's awesome.
100%. And we'll see you guys next time. Later.
Yeah.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Believe it.
See you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
Thank you for watching AfterBuzz TV on YouTube. For more of your favorite after shows and interviews, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to share your opinion on the episode in the comment section below here. We'd love to see what you guys are buzzing about. Thanks again. Buzz you later.